What is going on, folks? So this is the 2018 RKT9 RDO from Niner in the 3-star build. So the RKT9 is a 29-inch bike that's going to be more aimed at the cross-country race crowd with 90 millimeters of rear-wheel travel. And although I am going to race it, I'm also really curious to see how it's going to perform as a shorter travel trail bike, and more details on that here in a second. So for 2018, they added two new frame color options, a subtle but pretty classy looking carbon and green, as well as this not so subtle orange that matches the step-cast Fox 34 on this 3-star build, with them all now running a 120 millimeter fork up front, which they bumped up from 100. So I currently own a 2016 Air 9 carbon hardtail as my cross-country race bike, and it is crazy fast and quite comfortable, but being a hardtail, it does beat me up a little bit, especially as I'm getting a little bit older. And last year I got to ride a 2016-2017 RKT9 for a few weeks that was decked out with full XTR, 100 millimeter RS1 fork, and then carbon wheels, and well, pretty much fell in love immediately, so I'm pretty stoked to finally own one myself, as well as see how it's going to compare against the carbon hardtail. So in terms of build kits, it's going to be an easy choice if you need to save some money, so you can go with the 1-star build, or if you have a lot of money, you can go with the 5-star build. But if you're choosing between the 2, 3, and 4-star, it can be a little bit challenging, because all of them do run the 500% gear range SRAM Eagle drivetrain, with the 2-star and 3-star getting the GX variety with Guide R brakes, and then you'll get the X01 Eagle and Guide RSCs on the 4-star and 5-star. But they all do come with 180 millimeter rotors up front and then 160 rotors in the rear. And although there is a weight penalty for the GX flavor of Eagle, I found that it performs really well, so definitely consider it if you're looking to save some pennies. Now, in terms of Shimano versus SRAM, I used to be a Shimano diehard and used to run XT and XTR and pretty much everything, but lately in the last 5 years or so, I've kind of come to like that clunk shift of the SRAM rather than the rather vague but smoother shift of a Shimano. And then the same thing can actually be said for the brakes, where I was dead set on Shimano for quite some time, especially during those not so great Avid years. But I think SRAM is back on their brake game now, so now I actually tend to prefer the modulation of a SRAM versus the extreme stopping power of a Shimano, but to each their own. However, I still do prefer Shimano for my road and gravel bikes. However, I think I'm going to be trying Rival on my gravel bike. But for mountain, GX Eagle is such a high-performing group set at a pretty reasonable cost that I'll probably be on SRAM, at least for the near term. For suspension, one of the few complaints I had about the one I used last year was that the front end was pretty twitchy with a 100 millimeter fork up front. So I'm pretty stoked to see it being stocked with 120 millimeter now, which should help the bike feel a lot more stable and probably a lot more downhill capable. The 3-star and 4-star builds come with the 120 millimeter step-cast Fox 34 Float Fit 4 factory with Kashima coating up front, and then the Float DPS factory Evol with Kashima coating in the rear, as well as the same Stans Arch MK3 wheel set. And then you'll also get a 2.35 Maxxis Icon tire up front and then a 2.2 in the rear. But this is the first place where I'm going to make a change, where I'm going to put the 2.35 actually in the rear and then put something a little bit meatier up front, like a Minion DHF. Is that overkill? However, this bike is capable of running up to a 29 by 2.6 in the rear, which is kind of surprising and also kind of awesome for a bike that's going to be more aimed at the XC race crowd. But if you do choose to save a little bit of money with a 2-star build, then you'll get a Fox 34 Float Rhythm Grip Evol up front, and then a Fox Float DPS Performance 3-position in the rear. And then a Niner alloy wheel set, which I actually rode for 2 years on my 2016 RIP, and they are perfectly fine, but doesn't come with a Stans wheel set that's going to be tubeless straight out of the box. And then for the rest of the parts, with the 4-star and the 5-star, you get a carbon X1 crank and then a carbon RDO stem. But the 3-star and 2-star builds both come with the SRAM Stylo 7K crank and then an 80 millimeter alloy stem. And then this is going to be the next change, where I'm going to be swapping that out to like a 60 or 70 millimeter stem to see if I can bring in the front end in slightly, just to make it a little bit more confident while descending, and hopefully that won't affect the rest of the performance of the bike. So both the 3-star and the 4-star come with a 780 millimeter carbon RDO handlebar with guide marks if you do want to cut them down, but I'm used to 800, so I'm leaving mine long, as we don't really have a lot of trails here in northern Colorado that call for narrower handlebars. I just kind of tend to prefer the leverage that you can get out of wide bars, and it just makes my shoulders feel a little bit more comfortable too. They went with a standard carbon seat post on the 3-star version, where the 2-star gets aluminum, and then if you bump up to the 4-star, 5-star, you'll get their pretty awesome carbon RDO seat post, which provides a little bit of extra comfort. Now, the carbon RDO seat post is absolutely amazing, but that's going to be the next change I'm going to do, where I'm going to be putting a short dropper on here. And then lastly, it comes with a redesigned Niner saddle, and I'll be really curious to see how this rides, because the older version had some mixed reviews. The frame itself does not come with the new internal routing sleeves like they have on the new rib, but it does already come pre-routed with plastic sleeves. However, the brake housing is externally routed, which is going to be a little bit more convenient for servicing, but does also detract slightly from the rest of the sleek look of this bike. And then another thing that the new 2018 RIP has, which unfortunately this RKT does not, is a threaded bottom bracket, where this one is still going to be a press fit. It does have a provision for a front derailleur if that's your preference, however, this is not going to be ISCG compatible. The medium, large, and extra large sizes come with 2 water bottle cage mounts, with one inside the front triangle and then one below the down tube, but the small and extra small sizes only come with one. In terms of building the bike up, it's all very straightforward and went together easily, but I don't have a steer tube cutting guide, and honestly, I really don't enjoy bleeding brakes, so I did reach out to my friends at Brave New Wheel for some finishing touches. But back to the RKT, with the longer travel suspension up front, as well as the accommodation for 29 by 2.6 tires, as well as the addition of a dropper post, I'm really going to be curious to see how this is going to perform as a shorter travel trail bike. And I'm also going to try to get a hold of the Yeti SB100 to compare these back to back of these very popular short travel bikes. So as you can see, this bike is minty fresh right now with only a couple parking lot rides on it so far. So that's going to wrap up this video, and even though it's 90 degrees outside right now, I have to go ride this thing. So we will see you for a first ride report that's coming soon.